I said, I was just overwhelmed the way things have changed, the way, and especially at Lungi, because when I left, they have that light, those doing is it OAU, and the place was so paved, they have flowers. Yeah, with the place, it's just the way it's been so deteriorated, and the younger kids are selling stuff. When we were growing up, you don't see young kids selling stuff out there, You dare not. You're always home studying. That's a big shock for me.
I could tell Mary's trying to soak everything in, little by little.
I was really surprised.
My only hope is that Mary will see more good than bad, and will at least come away with some type of hope for the future of her people and her country. Today was the big day, the day of Khadija's ancestral homegoing ceremony called a Sara. She and her family are Muslim, and part of their tradition is to give honor to the loved ones who have passed. I didn't ask too many questions over the past few days because I didn't want to make this spiritual event a news event with me as journalist and them as subjects. But I could tell it was going to be something serious and deep. This will be the first time that I've been so close to an event, and a Muslim event at that. We didn't say too much in the car, just kind of sat there quietly. When we arrived, all of that changed. The first thing I noticed was a large amount of women sitting outside in what looked like a welcoming committee. And the cooking. Before the ritual occurs, there must be the preparation of food. This is one of Khadija's grandmothers, Haja Fantah. She was very kind and polite and welcomed me warmly. I instantly could tell who was the matriarch, the most important figure in the entire group, by where they sat, how they were addressed, and how they were taken care of, beginning with Haja Fantah. No matter who you were, out of respect, you are supposed to come and greet the eldest of them all first. Then you would make your rounds of greetings to everyone else, one of the many mores of their culture. I followed this type of routine and ritual without a problem because we sort of do this at home. As I looked around, trying not to make everyone and everything a spectacle, I saw how the women were interactive, yes, but they were also demure in some ways, almost sitting as if someone told them to sit ladylike and try not to be too loud because it was unbecoming of a woman. I remember being taught this as well throughout my life, but not just from my mother, but from all of the women in my family, aunts, cousins, older female relatives. It was pretty neat picking up on this. Wait, this woman looks just like my grandmother or one of her sisters. I asked her if I could take a picture because no one was going to believe it. And although she was right in the middle of cooking, she patiently let me take a few pictures and a video of her. Thanks. Although I could see all of the physical activity going on, I also felt an intense amount of unspoken energy. Almost like all of these women were leaders and royalty in their own right. I looked at them, and they looked at me, and I could feel the strength. No one said too much until this young woman, Agnes, broke the silence by insisting that I learn to speak Creole.
Minde, thank you. What's your name? My name Agnes. What's your name? My name Janice. Janice. Okay. Yes.
Not later, but now. And she was going to be my teacher.
Somebody be sit down. Somebody sit down there. Oh, somebody be sit on here. Yeah, somebody be sit on here. Somebody be sit on here. Yes. Somebody be sit on here.
She said that if I'm going to be here and I wanted to connect to my people, I must learn to speak Creole.
Agnes. Yeah. This is Agnes is teaching me Creole. Me bon mende.
Lessons over, it was time to eat. It was amazing how well I was able to eat just out of the kindness of people giving. To be in such a poor place, economically speaking, but always being offered food and a place to lay my head everywhere I went. Such a generous people. Remember earlier when I said that some Sierra Leoneans don't like their picture taken? Well, you must also know that there are some surprising exceptions to this rule, like Abraham, one of Kadia and Ishmael's brothers.
Go ahead. I'm Mr. Ibrahim Kamara.
This is my brother. Shalan Kamara. This is my wife. My name is Kamara. This is Abu Kamara. Abubakar Kamara. My younger brother. And this is my younger brother too. Tony Kamara. This is my daughter, Aisha Kamara. This is my son, Ismail Kamara.
He is definitely proud of his family. A nice moment.
And this is my landed man, by Ishmael.
Ishmael is seen as one of the gems of the family. He is highly educated, well-connected, and as many would attest, absolutely brilliant. Although he has been blessed with many wonderful opportunities in his life, he has always given back to others.
Then let them they load the voice them. Then the Quran they can't take place. Now me
With our bellies full and me learning and speaking 2 sentences in Creole, it was finally time for the praying ceremony to begin.
Fatiha.
In any community, in any nation, in any tribe, in any society where you dey, what you make up that society or nation, now history and story.
All day pan the check now. Right now, what's my pen and I check. Now, my sheriff now will tell the sister. See, right now, what's my pen and I check. Because now she don't and he inside with me. So now will tell them.
They said that you are part of the ceremony.
Oh, thank you.
After the end of this one, you have to give speech.
Okay.
Pertaining to the activities which your people are doing there.
Okay.
Yeah, pertaining to Islam.
Okay.
So, now the order. Salaam alaikum. For those who don't know, start one.
اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا يا رب العالمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا العالمين اللهم أنت الرزاق ارزقنا من الليل وأطراف النهار اللهم بيدك الخير وبيدك المفاتيح الخير وافتح لنا أبواب خيرتك يا رب العالمين اللهم أنت الذي كنت فادعوني أستجب لكم اللهم إنا دعوناك فاستجب لنا يا رب العالمين.
And put blessing for our hall, allow unite. Janice discovered 2 years ago a trace in DNA back to Sierra Leone. What I mean, they take slave them before from here, there. So some of the parents them they don't take them from here, so they trace 100% Sierra Leone and 100% Namibia. So it come for country documentary where you go take for shares for make sure that everybody will understand that she has Sierra Leonean blood in self. So that documentary they do here, then they get for Kuna Moyamba for go follow up. So he said they ask for a blessing, they want to pray for her. What they can do, they could place, God put blessing for her. So sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
What you turn the mama and daddy for we all. Papa born 22 people. I tell you say, tell Papa say for me go America. I say you left now. Pay school fee for war. He sent for 12 people left. But we all family go to America right now.
It was an amazing event to witness. I thought of how I have always felt a need to remember my mother and other family members who had passed on with a special ritual like this. But I don't know, we just don't have it. I don't think many African Americans do this as a tradition, except for maybe in the South, like the people from the Gullah Geechee culture. They continue to uphold and protect the Africanisms by participating in similar rituals, but from a Christian platform. Well, everything was just beautiful and very serene. At the end, they said a special prayer for me and my project, and then the women made sure that all of the praying men received extra containers of food to take back to their villages. I asked and was asked to take more pictures of new friends, possibly family, and respected royalty of the family, like this beautiful woman, one of Khadija's aunts. And this family. This lovely woman was especially connected to me, not just because we were both Mende, but we both had a gap in our teeth, which is seen as like a beauty mark. And she was very sweet. Our drive up and down the mountains was quiet, bordered by the reliable mountains of Ceylon. A new highway is being built, sights I expected to see. And when we stopped by a grocery store to get a few things, I saw something that I did not expect to see, but had heard of. An amputee from the war. I was shocked to see his arms wrapped with bandages around spaces that used to be his hands. It was really sad to see. You know, in all of its splendor of majestic mountains and sparkling water, I am instantly reminded of the casualties of war that must also be accepted and embraced. Although he has survived, his life is forever altered. As a result of the war, and as a result of being one of the most impoverished countries in the world, technological advances still have a long way to go here in Ceylon. Even if technology catches up, people here may not be able to afford the services. Communicating with one another is extremely challenging. Counting on having electricity, for instance, each day is a gamble. It can be days or weeks without electricity. For the ones who can afford it, generators that run on gas are a good yet smelly option and not very healthy when used for long periods of time. Most of the people I saw in the streets had cell phones, but there is no service for voicemail. And the internet? They know it exists, but again, to depend on its service is costly, and not everyone can afford the service, and hardly anyone owned or had access to a working computer on a daily basis. Juggling through the streets, heading uphill, we thought we would take a chance to stop by and visit Obai and Soccoh Kabia. They are from what you would call a royal family. They're the sons of the late paramount chieftess Ella Koblo Gulama. Although she passed away in 2006, Madame Gulama remains an important figure in Sierra Leone. Her mother was Lucy Gulama and her father was Paramount Chief Julius Gulama, also both Mende. Her grandfather, Momo Gulama, was also a paramount chief of the Kayamba chiefdom. She was educated at the Harford School for Girls in Moyamba and the Women's Teachers College at Fora Bay College in Freetown. During her tenure of ruling, she became the first elected female member of parliament in Sierra Leone and all of sub-Saharan Africa. And during the government of Milton Margai, she became Sierra Leone and sub-Saharan Africa's first female cabinet minister. Needless to say, she accomplished a great deal. Born Francis Obai Kabia, Obai is involved in politics. In Soccoh, born Soccoh Ella Kablo, is a medical doctor who works between here and the United States, and is also involved in politics in Ceylon.
You'd have saved a lot of money. Oh, correct. And a lot of the...
I was anxious about setting up a time and day that I could interview them with Samuel, my other shooter. I had no idea that the interview was actually going to take place right now. In Sierra Leone, you have to take opportunities as they come because everything is unpredictable. Electricity, weather, traffic, even interviewing sessions you hadn't scheduled.
My grandfather had this young, bright, again, up-and-coming daughter, very brilliant, that went to a missionary school in Myanmar, the Harvard School for Girls. Yeah, okay. And when she finished Harvard, she came to Teachers Training College here. She was the first female from the provinces to go to school, to go to college.
Soccoh and Obai told me that their mother's father saw something special in her as a young child, and so he began directing her path through education and politics, knowing she was destined to lead.
The time was ripe for someone like her, and she made full use of that. And
as the conversation progressed, I could see how proud they were of their mother and all the good things she had done for this country and its people.
I don't think she had any choice because I had to be born.
Madam Ella, who was Mende, married a powerful paramount chief named Obai Koblo Gulama, the second of the Marampa Masamera chieftain, and an ethnic Timni. Their union brought the two nations together and also extended the immediate family. Like many families in Sierra Leone, who were mostly Christian and Muslim, polygamy was an accepted practice. They had 7 children. Obai and Soccoh are the last of their children to survive. Although their father had other wives and children, their mother, known as the first wife, was always respected.
For us as children and grandchildren, she was a figure we all looked up to, and we could always rely on her as the center of the family. And it seemed as if she, could make no mistake. She was a disciplinarian, but not in a bad way. Very principled person, and someone who would stand up for the truth.
My father was also a paramount chief, and he had many wives and many children, and my mother never discriminated against the children of her mates. She brought them home. She educated them. She took them. In fact, sometimes I felt she was more caring and loving towards them than to us. That is for real. So there are so many good attributes of my mom.
Her sons continued this tradition of caring for extended family, which I will talk about a little later. But there's a sad part to this story I learned. Soccoh and Obai told me that their mother had gone through many rough times that would break a weak person's soul.
Personal sacrifices she made, periods when in the political scene were very challenging, where she faced prison time or even possible death. And she, withstood those and was always a great example of bravery.
They say she survived them all because of her inner strength and belief and trust in God. What she could not survive was the death of her only daughter, Gilo.
I remember also when our sister died. She died at the age of 26, her only daughter. And she had to endure that. And was able to overcome, although not completely. She always missed her. Correct. But she still maintained her dignity and never doubted her belief in God.
Gilo died in America of a pulmonary embolism. I could hear and see the pain that they held within them as if her passing occurred just yesterday. The emotions that felt fresh, well, it appears that perhaps they're still working to get over it, or at least through it, day by day.
Any human being, And I remember when we were going to bury my sister, and we passed by the grave in Mama, and the look in my mom's face, I'll never forget, never. But she overcame that. We continued to. There that day. Yeah, you were there. Yeah, were you at Harvard then?
I was there for the funeral. I was already in Freetown, and then my sister called me to tell me that they were coming today. I was in Kabbalah. I had to drive that night to get to. She always was protective of women, and she didn't like women to be taken advantage of by men. If the tradition is that when a woman and a man are going someplace traveling, it's the woman that carries the heavy load. She said that whenever Madame saw that, she would make sure that the man takes over from the woman and ensures that the man is carrying the heavy load and not the woman. So that's basically, she was very protective of women's rights and wanted to make sure that they were not taken advantage of.
Like my brother said, the female society is not just, this big thing about, female circumcision and stuff like that. No, it built women, okay? Because that's where they taught them how to take care of their men, their children, and stuff, okay? And maybe I may be wrong, maybe I should not say this, but some of the reasons why they even went to aspect of that, it's because they felt that if that is done, the urge for sex will be minimized because the guys went farming, they went hunting, they went to war. And if that was done, then their women will not sort of, want, that aspect of human nature, So that was the reason why. And it continued. It's going to be very difficult, It's going to be very difficult for us to change, because this is.
Wow, cutting someone to curtail her natural urges. I remained open to listening so that I could try and understand this process contextually.
It's very difficult for, it'll happen. It'll happen. Okay, it'll happen eventually. Because personally, I have 4 daughters, and they have not gone through it. Okay, and I don't think they ever will go through it. But aside from my daughters, society here, they believe in it. This is part of their DNA. They're not just gonna let it go. Eventually, it might happen, but I don't think it's gonna. Anyway, coming back to.
The way it is nowadays, I was the Minister of Social Welfare in Gender, and there are laws against it in Sierra Leone for people who are below 18 years. If 18 and above, they can make their own choice, they believe. and it is illegal to have, kids who are less than 18 to be, yeah. And I think it's good that that's the case.
For women, so many Westerners have voiced their opinions about the procedure, so I intentionally tried to mainly listen. I didn't want to pass judgment before hearing their indigenous voices. What I think that I've learned so far is that basically, if you're a Mende and lived in the Moyamba district, and you wanted to be a respected woman of honor and integrity, you would have to go through it. Would I go through it? Ow. Well, just thinking about it hurts. But on the other hand, I think I get it as it has been explained to me. But still, I would need a little bit more information. Perhaps I'll have another chance to talk about it. We'll have to see. For now, it's a sensitive and very personal and secretive topic, so I'm just going to wait it out and see what happens. Soccoh and Obai had to leave soon, so I started to pack up my gear and began thanking them for their time. But wait, what about slavery?
The slaves in Africa were part of the family. People had this status, okay, that you knew where you were a slave, and certain rights were denied you, in rights of your full freedom of going where you wanted to go and when you wanted to go, but you were within certain society structures where you walked, okay, and but it was not a cruel experience per se. There were even intermarriages between slaves. One way of acquiring your freedom would be to marry into your master's family or whatnot. And there was no case of separating your children from you or, inflicting, severe injury to people. So it was a difference. There's no slavery is good. You understand? You cannot say, one would. It was a great thing for someone to have his freedom being controlled like that. That is inhuman, no matter how you look at it. But that cruelty was not the hallmark.
The British were totally embarrassed about slave trade. Okay, that's why they did not, sort of teach it while we were going to school. And then you had another group of folks who came here, the missionaries, who taught, that it was wrong to do this slave trade, this slave business, this thing about, certain people better than others. In terms of why weren't us Africans so involved in slave trade, in disseminating this information about slavery, I think that's it. The British, who were our colonizing masters, didn't want us to know. They just wanted to hide that aspect of what the cruelty that they effected on us. Okay, they just wanted to hide it, But then again, there were others like William Wilberforce who said slavery was wrong. Okay, and made it so. Anyway.
So, also helped capture Africans, to be sold as slaves. But they had no idea that of the extent of cruelty that they were going to go through.
So while some Africans traded other Africans who were basically prisoners of war, they had no idea of the cruelty they would face or the fact they would not be allowed to return to their homeland.
Will see, will feel
I did for an interview.
Is the whole idea
she's been, that's okay. It's been very emotional for
what did I have to say?
Janice.
Janice,
oh, I'm fine. I'm
it's
fine.
Okay.
I'm
You're with
I'm
brothers.
good. Yeah,
your brothers
I'm
here.
fine.
Really, you're okay. You're okay. Okay, you're all right.
Yeah, I'm
You're
good.
right.
I'm good.
You're right. We're family.
Yeah.
Okay? It's all right. It's all right.
I know.
Okay. That's the men. That's the men they're coming out of you.
This has been wonderful because you gave a perspective that I didn't have, you know, on the whole issue of, you know, slavery and why Africans don't understand what they went through.
Yeah. But I guess what I got out of it and what I got out of the sound that I heard from the spirit and the heart is that we always want to know why were we given away? I mean, I guess. And you feel that because no one tells you, no African has ever visited the United States, went to a college, in a classroom on a prevalent level where they can hear over and over and over that it's not what we anticipated. It's not what we expected. We didn't know this was going to happen to you. We are still connected to you. We still want you. You're still our brother and sister. We still love you. That sort of thing, because African Americans in a lot of ways are just out there floating. We're Americans, we're African Americans, but when I ask in my workshops, I say, well, where in Africa are you from? And they say they don't know. That's huge. So that means part of your identity you don't know. So you're only half a person. Now you can choose what you want to do with the information that you have, but I think it's important for Africans to connect with African Americans so that the healing can be done.
But we always have to persevere, have to ensure that people are educated and people respect one another and respect every life, whether it's black or white, and recognize our kinship, recognize that we all belong to the same human family, recognize through DNA has proven it. We all know that we're all, you know, same people. And in particular, African Americans have done so much of service to Africa. You know, the civil rights movement didn't only have its impact in America, worldwide, and even in our society. Independence of Africa emanated from the struggles of black people in America. A lot of our leaders who went there and experienced discrimination and learned about abuse of civil rights came back and agitated for independence in Africa. That is the effect. That's the other side of the coin, you know. So we have this in common. We should all strive together to work together for the sake of humanity. And our own struggle is your struggle. Your struggle is our struggle. And in the greater human sense too, President Obama would never become president if white people had not supported him. You see, so we're all interrelated, interconnected, and this is what my own personal experience. That's what I believe in. That's why I'll fight injustice, not only in America, but even in my country as well. If I see injustice, if I see abuse of power, I will always be the first to speak out.
Oh, wow. I've laughed, cried, and now I finally got the chance to ask the question and questions I've always wanted to ask my entire life. And now I feel emotionally exhausted, but really happy at the same time. I learned a lot about the disconnection between Africans and African Americans, and my renewed shared hope and desire that through education and meeting one another will help close this gap, something I hope will happen for others in the future. Yes, today was a good day and a good interview.
let me clarify. It's not that I say that, you know, female circumcision is good. That's not my point. My point is people looking at it from a different prism than the people who have actually experienced it and making judgments about it. That's what concerns me. I would like for it to die out. And for me, I think the only way is education, educating women. And the more the women and the mothers are educated, the less likely they are to, you know, require their daughters, you know, to go through that.
Did women and young girls really have a choice? Perhaps. But I'm happy to know that things are changing. Surprisingly, I began to understand the issue contextually. And I have to say that there is a chance that if I grew up in this culture, wanted to be respected, wanted to get married to an honorable man, knew nothing else, or had no other real choice, I may have willingly gone through the ritual myself. I have to also be honest and say that I'm relieved that I didn't have to make this decision. It is not my culture, but it is theirs, and I respect the courageous women who have made it through.